All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Pamela Nuri. I'm Head of Expedition Operations at Noble Caledonia. And we have with us here today Paul Mildon from our London head office, who is in charge of deploying all the products all around the world. And Paul, I have to say, I think you're one of the smartest people I know. I don't know how you keep all those little bits and maps and information in your head. Sometimes I feel as though you know the areas better than me, even though I've actually been to them and run trips in them more times than you have necessarily. So hello, and how are you?
Good morning, Pam. Yeah, very well, very well. So having another week in lockdown here in London.
Gosh, I know. I think everywhere around the world, and certainly in South Africa, it's been pretty strict. But hopefully it all starts easing off, I think, in the next few months so we can get back out there again.
Indeed, yeah, that's our hope. That's our hope. Let's get operating and put people on holiday like we've been doing for 30 years.
Yeah, that's right. 30 years anniversary next year, and you're 20 years working at Noble just last week, hey?
Yes, yeah, celebrated 20 years last week, so it's flown by.
Amazing, yeah. Well, it certainly shows in terms of how well you know the product, and they all seem to be these lovely, well-oiled machines that we get to actually operate, but they have a lot of back planning, and that's largely by you and your team. So, Paul, I specialize in, as you know, expedition. I've never done a river cruise, and I'm really interested myself, but also people are always asking questions. So this is going to be fun getting to ask you as a complete novice to river cruising about how river cruises work. I mean, first of all, tell us about the ships.
Okay, so I mean, we been operating river cruises for the majority of the time the company's been going. So we've got a lot of experience in operating river cruises. Primarily, we've been working in Europe. So we work with a ship called the Royal Crown, which has got a longer term charter. And then we're always looking for other places that we can go to. So once we've worked out where the Royal Crown is going to be operating, which is normally on the Rhine, Danube rivers, we then look at elsewhere in Europe, but also further afield. So, I mean, one thing that we've been trying to do is really about the size of the ships that we operate with. So,
yeah, I've got something I can share here.
Yeah.
There we go. Yeah, these are some of the vessels you've put together for us to have a look at. Very nice.
Yeah, so basically we, one of the biggest things we are looking for, and it works with our sea cruises as well and our land touring departures as well, is the size of the groups that we're operating with. So we do try to keep the sizes as small as possible. So when we're talking to our suppliers, we do look at the size of the ship. So Royal Crown, for example, which isn't here, but it's our flagship, that would only takes around sort of 70 to 80 people are sailing on that, on those rivers, whereas the majority of ships on those rivers are over 150 to 200 people. The ships we've got here is, for example, on the top left is our ship on the Douro, again around 120 people on the Gilenis. The Volga Dream there on the top right, which is operates our trips on the Volga River between Moscow and St. Petersburg. Bottom left is the Misr, which operates on the Nile, very successful trips on the Nile. Again, sort of talking sub 50 passengers on that. And bottom right is one of the newer ships that we're working with, which is the African Dream, which works on Lake Kariba and is packaged together with some product in South Africa. And we're only talking about 16 passengers on those ships. So we can see that what we are trying to do is trying to keep that sort of experience that we provide on our sea cruising, which is that sort of more intimate experience, onto the rivers as well. So that's quite a key part of how we
and just like our sea fleet, they're beautiful, classic-looking vessels, especially this Miser or Miser over here. It's a really good-looking boat to turn up in.
Yeah, a lot of the ships we use have got a history. So Misra does have a history as, on the Nile. African Dream actually is a brand new ship that was only built last year, but the ships have been built in these sort of classic styles that do complement the areas that they're traveling in, which gives you that sort of, so when you're on the ship in Africa, you do have a lot of African artifacts around you, which sort of complements when you're traveling, you sort of feel that you're exposed in there as well. So.
Yeah. All right, so now the trip that many of our guests have been on, and this is one I wanted to ask you about, is, wait for it, this one here, hang on a second. There we go, comes across the whole of Europe. It goes all the way from the North Sea or the Black Sea or the other way around, depending which way you do it, pardon me. And this is on the Royal Crown.
Yeah. So as I said, the Royal Crown is probably is a ship that we've been using for a number of years now. We take about 130 nights a year on the ship, and one of the jobs we've got with myself and the team is to create the itineraries that we're going to operate. So we tend to operate with the ship April and May and June, and then again in September and October. So April and May is very good to be working around the sort of the Dutch area and the bulk fields. But when you get to sort of May, it's a great time to be traveling in Europe because the temperatures are getting warmer, but it's not too hot. It's not too busy yet with the height of summer. And then if you can do a trip once all the canals are once all the locks are open and the canals are all operating, we can operate from Amsterdam all the way down to the Black Sea. It's a 23-night trip. And we were one of the first companies in the world to be offering it because we knew that our guests and our clients enjoy seeing a number of different cultures, a number of different places along the way. And if you look at some of the places you visit, you're visiting iconic destinations throughout the river, all the way through down to the Black Sea. And to be able to say you've transited pretty much across Europe from one side to the other, it's quite a unique and quite an interesting.
Yeah, this
story.
looks to me like the trip of a lifetime. But my question would be, 23 days sounds like a big, sort of time investment. And, do you stop every day and go ashore and go on excursions, or how much of that is happening like we do on sea ships?
So you do get a lot of time ashore, and the advantage with a lot of these, with the river cruising, is you're normally very centrally moored. And if you're on a small ship like ours, you can get on and off quite quickly into the town centres. So that's one of the advantages you've got here. You are quite active because there are a lot of stops, but because we're centrally moored, if you can't take the full excursion, the full 1 or 2 kilometre walk, you can just get off and come back to the ship, which is an easy location to get back into. But we do make sure we have time on the river as well, because there's some beautiful scenery once you get down through into Eastern Europe. The Iron Gates, for example, is one of those places that you want to be going through there in the daytime, and you do want to be seeing the scenery. So we do make sure that we do have that time where people can just sit on deck, relax, enjoy the scenery, and hopefully some lovely weather at the right time of year.
And is it just like in the sea where you have sort of docks booked at specific time slots all down the river, so you have your slot already, or is it a slightly more casual?
No. You have to book your slot in advance. We can't deny the fact the rivers are getting busier and busier. There are more and more ships being built, so there is a necessity to be booking plenty of time in advance, over a year in advance for some of these berths. Wow. Just to make sure you get them.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Now there was another trip here that I would like to look at. Okay, so this one, we often get the impression that the river trips are a little bit more staid, less adventurous, but I believe this one, I've heard from a number of people, is pretty exotic and quite a lot of sort of safaris and that sort of thing.
Well, that's what sort of I thought was quite important to showcase, is that there is this perception that the river cruising may be for a slightly less exotic or less adventurous nature, but something like this is we use on the Brahmaputra River on a ship, the Charaju 2, which is pictured there. It's an itinerary we've been doing now for probably about 6 or 7 years, and we have been fine-tuning it as we've been running it, just to make it work better, because you are in quite a remote part of India here where we're operating, but we've fine-tuned it, and we go to Kaziranga National Park there, which is a opportunity to go and look for tigers, and we do a number of safaris there whilst we're there, and there is a lot of bird life there, so it is an interesting sort of side to maybe a slightly more adventurous river cruise.
Okay. And then tell us about this one. It's a little closer to home, not as big of a time commitment, but still hitting some really gorgeous cities and landscapes.
Well, this is what the other thing is, that as we've been developing our river cruise programs over the last 30 years, we've always been looking for something a little bit different. And this is just it's a trip on the Oder River that goes up from Berlin up to the Baltic coast. Only very small ships can do this, so we're using this ship here, and only small ships can do this, operate this itinerary. But it just takes you somewhere a little bit different. So this is one that we're bringing back for 2021. operating, I believe, in the summer, July 2021. And it's just to sort of say that we are still trying to be innovative with our trips, and that we're planning in Europe as well as further afield. So yeah. So you don't have to travel a long way to get slightly off the beaten track on the rivers.
Okay. And speaking of that, I know we have some really regular river types of clienteles, and one of the things that Noble is very good at is, you know, having our really loyal clients and finding something new for them all the time. It's definitely one of the perks of the job from my perspective, but I think this one is really something new and off the beaten track. When is this happening?
So this is operating, we're actually, our first trip's due to be at the end of this year, but then we're operating again throughout 2021, and we've got dates on 2022 already. It's a brand new ship that's being built called the Itinerary, which is being built in Laos, and this operates on the northern Mekong. So there's a lot of capacity, there's a lot of ships operating in the lower Mekong, in and out of Ho Chi Minh, but they can't go that far up the river because of their size. So this is only a 20-passenger ship, which is operating in the northern half of Laos, and we can get right the way up through to the Golden Triangle, which is up on the Thai-Lao border, so from Vientiane and move further north. So again, it's just something new. It's a beautiful new ship that's being built with a supplier that we've been working with for a number of years now, called Heritage, and you know, we're really excited about it as a project, but again, because again, it can take us somewhere that is slightly different and off the beaten track, and it's great for people who love to river cruise, and it's a new destination for them to go to.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Paul, obviously with river cruising, you're kind of limited to where there are not only rivers, but also navigable rivers, but also vessels operating. What's new in the cards down the long run, apart from that one? Anything exciting? I mean, from your side, it must be quite a challenge keeping to find new places.
Yeah, I mean, it's not necessarily new places, it's also how you can do something different on the rivers. So somewhere like the Rhine, the Main, the Danube rivers are always going to be slightly challenging just because of the number of other competitors you've got on the same rivers. So how can we make ourselves different? And I think two of the ways we do that, one is the themes that we operate. So in 2021, for example, on the Royal Crown, we've got a roses trip, because we're operating in July, which is a great time to see the roses. And there are so many rose gardens throughout Germany that we can do this Roses of the Rhine itinerary, which we're operating in July. We've got great wine trips as well. So we do try and combine those with the harvest. So we've got a Bordeaux wine trip. We've got wine trips in the south of France as well. And music as well, which is quite important. We've got a great relationship with London Festival Opera. They come on board the ship and they'll do performances, or we'll have performances in local venues along the river. And we try and incorporate those into the trips as well. The other important thing is also having a guest speaker. All of the trips have got a guest speaker on board. So if we have a theme on the trip, they'll be discussing that theme. But if we're just traveling across Europe by river, we'll have people who can talk about the architecture, the history, and things like that along the way. So it really, for me and for the team in London, is just trying to get that point of difference, which I think we've done quite well over 30 years, and which is our plan to carry on doing in the next 30 years.
Yeah. Okay, so for all the guests that I know that are, you know, avid fans of expedition and maybe even destination, what would be the crux difference why they might try out coming to rivers? Is it something they might do later when they're done with the expedition, or is it something you might just crack on with now because they really offer something unique?
Well, I mean, for anybody who wants to go on a river cruise, I think it's that perception. I think people just need to understand there is a good crossover. You can get the same sort of outworld experience, because, you know, places like the India trip that we talked about there are naturalists on board the train or on board the ship there, and they're happy to take people for a walk to go and see the birds, for example, or to talk about the birding that they will see there. So, of course, if you're an adventurous expedition type, there will be certain trips that probably stand out more for you, maybe on the longer haul trips to India or Southeast Asia. But from a cultural point of view, these are fantastic trips for people who maybe want to be a bit more independent when they travel and arrive as well. So you can arrive in some of these places on the Danube or the Rhine or the Moselle or the Rhone, and you are in a central place, and you can just go off and potter and really experience these great locations.
That's great, Paul. And one more question. Are the cabins quite similar in size? I mean, the Sky Fleet have such generous size cabins. Are the river ships, I mean, there must be a bit of diversity, but can you expect a similar sort of experience in terms of like that nice boutique hotel kind of generous cabins on the river ships, or they generally have to be smaller?
Generally, they are smaller, certainly on the European ships. But when we start again looking at the Nile, for example, which is that ship we looked at the beginning there, the cabins there are much bigger. The ones in Southeast Asia as well tend to be quite large cabins. But certain rivers, like we were talking about the Oder River there, going up through from Berlin to the north coast, because there are restrictions on the river, the ships need to be a bit smaller, and therefore the cabins are a little bit smaller. So it is a mixed range, but we've got all those details to hand. So if anyone's interested, they can just ask us. We can tell them how big the cabin is.
Great. Well, you might actually see me on a river ship soon by the sounds of things.
Very well.
Paul, thanks so much for your time, and I hope you stay safe, and we'll get in touch again. I know we have some other questions to ask about other products, so thank you so much for your time.
Okay, good to see you.
Okay, bye.
Bye.